Sociocracy is a decentralized organizing method that any group, including competitive businesses, can use, and is transforming organizations to be empowering, resilient, effective, efficient, and adaptive. Sociocracy has several key design features: consent-based decision-making, circles, which act as semi-autonomous policy-making and working groups, and double linking, where different levels of an organization's hierarchy are linked to ensure that decision-making power is distributed throughout the organization. Sociocracy is also referred to as dynamic governance, or DG, and dynamic self-governance, or DSG. Rainbow Mountain Children's School near Asheville, North Carolina, is a holistic alternative school for approximately 130 students from 3 years old through 8th grade.
It was really kind of a benign monarchy before we had dynamic governance, because I prefer to run an organization in a way that everyone is empowered and they have a voice, but we didn't have the structure for that.
The power structure influences the behavior of people. And there have been some psychological experiments and also some scientific experiments that prove that that's true. So if you look, for example, at the Milgram experiment, they did this experiment with the idea to know whether what had happened in World War II was just a crazy thing about Germans because they are crazy people, or was it something that could happen to any one of us, anyone was capable of killing. 70% of the people went to this stage where they killed the other person because there was the boss in the white smoke telling them that they should turn up the voltage. And the question was, why do people do that? Also normal, very normal people like you and me. What happened was that people during the experiment transferred the responsibility, their own responsibility, towards the chief. But they think, well, he's the boss and it's his responsibility, not mine. Because everybody thinks, I don't agree with it, but what can I do? And otherwise I get punished, so I just do it. And it was the same behavior I came across in organizations. People were doing bad things to one another, political behavior, sabotaging, or things they thought that, well, it's not good for the company, but just because I have a boss and what can I do else? Here, a specific aspect of the situation, characteristic, is the decision-making structure. That is linear. It's from the leader to the subordinate. And here you see all the negative aspects that this system brings forward. If this has such an influence, the power structure, how decision-making is organized, then what will happen if you change that power structure or decision-making structure? Can you see other behavior?
It's completely, really taken us by surprise. We didn't expect to adopt it originally. We didn't expect to adopt it so quickly, and we had no idea that the results would be so incredible. And I would like to find a way to let more organizations know about it.
A few hundred companies are working with Sociocracy.
You can use it in families, you can use it in businesses, universities, towns, cities, governments, nations.
How Sociocracy started. In the late 1960s, Dutch engineer Gerard Endenburg owned and ran Endenburg Electronics.
I made a lot of money. I was working with 165 people. I was thinking the most important question, how to live together. What's behind the business? It has to do with power. What's behind power? I found the answer. It has to do with guidance. We don't know how to guide social structures. And I was thinking, my goodness, what do I know about leadership and so on, management? I had all these books and tried to translate technical knowledge to social life. And then that was the start of Sociocracy. There's always a boss telling his or her subordinates what to do. And that's a linear way of doing.
Endenburg Electronics, an electrical engineering company with 165 employees, was the living laboratory where engineering principles helped develop sociocracy.
We are working since 1970 with sociocracy. But one thing, sociocracy will never disappear at Endenburg Electronics. Never.
How sociocracy works.
And the circular way is to introduce this feedback.
There are 4 major elements: consent decision-making, the circle process, double linking, and elections by consent.
So it was for me very important that every human being had the possibility to speak, but by means of this circle process and asking everyone, can I have your consent? At that time, everyone has the possibility to say, I cannot give my consent, and then the other people will ask, what is the reason for that? So we have to listen to the other person.
Consent decision-making is only for policy-making and elections, not for operational day-to-day decisions. If you have no objection to a proposed new policy, you consent. If the proposal doesn't work for you, you object. To object, you need a reason, and it must be paramount. That is, it will keep you from being able to achieve your circle's goals. Objections are used to amend the proposal until there are no further objections. Rounds are speaking turns taken by each circle member, giving everyone multiple opportunities to voice their opinions. There are no responses or discussion during rounds.
Most of the time people think long meetings and that you don't get consent. What happens if you don't get consent? Then you are stuck. Well, we have the solution that if a decision has to be made and the circle doesn't give consent, then it goes to the next higher circle. And there's the representative and the leader together with others in a bigger context. In my experience of 20 years, it has never happened. Because people want to talk a little bit longer than to let it be discussed upstairs. But the tension is necessary to bring people to creativity. And most of the time, people who have objections, you can show that the decision is improved.
Charlottesville Medical Research, CMR, in Charlottesville, Virginia, is a 14-employee organization that performs clinical studies.
It doesn't necessarily mean if I consent to something that I'm in 100% agreement with that proposal. It's just a proposal that I can live with, a proposal that I have no paramount objections against. By doing that, it has sped up the process by which our group has been able to make decisions.
No one is really saying pass or I don't have anything to say, no, unless they truly are just neutral with the subject. Whereas before, some people would not be saying anything. And so I think it's created a much more of a trusting environment, actually.
The circle process. Circles are groups with well-defined aims where managers, supervisors, and staff meet as peers to make policy decisions by consent.
They come from this situation, oh, actually I'm just a subordinate in this big hierarchical structured organization, to say, hey, I'm part of a team. We as a team, we have a common goal. We want to achieve this goal together, and we are going to set policy on it. We're going to distribute assignments, responsibilities to the different members of the team. I'm very much in favor of autocratic decision making, but within the limits that are set by the circle structure. Because it's there where people take the joint responsibility for their team goal, for their organization goals, and assign responsibilities to one another.
The Roombeek schools are in Enschede in the Netherlands.
There are about 100 teachers who have done the training in about 20 schools. Now they are so much involved with the decision making that they have to prepare the meeting, and they know they will be asked for their opinion. So that is a big step forwards.
How many meetings do you have right now? I promise you, your meetings will be declined with 30–50%. So, and if not, then we stop the process.
Double linking. DG introduces a representative that is elected by the circle. This representative brings feedback up to the next higher level of hierarchy. Both the circle leader and the representative participate in that next higher circle with decision-making power.
So by means of the representative, you have a real new level of connection.
Feedback coming back and forth through the circles, up and down through the circles, is critical to how DSG works, or whether DSG works.
Elections by consent. Some positions, such as the circle representatives, are filled by using the consent process.
We make nominations, we go around and find out from everybody why this person would be good for this task, and you learn a whole lot about them, especially the person that's been asked. They go, well, this is really something I've always wanted to do, I'm very good at XYZ. You might not have even known that was something that they want to do, and yet they wouldn't have raised their hand to volunteer previously.
The sociocratic organizational structure. An organization that uses sociocracy is run day to day by its general circle, made up of the leaders and the representatives from functional circles, plus the executive director. There's also a top circle, concerned with long-range planning, which includes people from outside the organization. There are always two people who participate in linking two levels of hierarchy, the circle leader and the elected representative. The four major elements are consent decision-making, the circle process, double linking, and elections by consent. Power with.
The focus shifts. It's no longer on the boss. It's very clearly focused on the mission and the shared purpose of the organization. So that rather than being motivated extrinsically by the boss, giving rewards and punishment about what to do, in the power with scenario, I'm motivated intrinsically.
We're not conditioned to sense what power with means, certainly not in our business schools and things like that.
We differ in our powers and our capabilities. So there is inequality. We say you have unique individuals and they're working and living together on an equivalent basis.
Living Well in Bristol, Vermont is an award-winning 15-bed elder care home with 14 employees. Living Well started sociocratically in 2004.
I went to a Quaker high school. I've been a deacon in church. I've run a manufacturing business for many years. I was in the Navy. I've experienced a lot of different ways to make decisions and organize. This system doesn't mean we don't have hierarchy. It doesn't mean we don't have different jobs. There's still that structure. However, the power of the organization, where policy is set, is empowering, and everybody in the system has a voice that cannot be ignored. And that is hugely different than any kind of system that I've ever seen or experienced.
Everybody has more of a say as to how the organization is run. Everybody has more of a voice. Things are more equitable within the organization. But that's just half of the story. There's still a hierarchy in place that is very efficient. It's just sort of a combination of the best of all worlds in so many ways.
West Brabant Home Care in Roosendaal in the Netherlands has 2,000 employees and has been adopting DG for 5 years.
Everybody has to tell what to think about an issue. Then you always get all the opinions. And every opinion is just as important.
The method in DSG of being sure everyone is heard does force people who possibly might not speak up to do so. They do have the opportunity to pass, but as you get more comfortable in the group, I think everybody really wants to be heard in life, but don't for whatever reasons, for punitive reasons, especially in a work setting. And if they know the culture is one in which they want to hear what you have to say and there will not be ramifications, from it, then they're more willing to speak up.
Transformation.
Everyone has to say what his or her opinion was. And that was quite shocking for some people. Not everyone has the history of saying their opinion. So take time for those people, show them that it's safe.
And it takes a while for people to even get used to that. We have employees that have never really been asked how they felt about something, or a policy that was going to be set, that they actually help create the policy, and it can't be implemented without their consent. And that is scary for some people, and it takes supporting them and helping them learn how to work with the tool and work in the circle environment.
And it's a shift of perspective. And this shift of perspective, there you encounter the most of the problems, because it's not in our culture, it's not in our conditioning, we're not used to it, and you have to make this shift in a very slow process. You see that the shift is being made. I also don't think that you can force it from people. You can just facilitate it and then wait for it slowly to happen. So this process to let it in and really grasp the meaning of what it means to be equivalent with others. But I see also that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of change in behavior to make that possible. It encourages people to grow as a person, as a human being.
So it is about creating ultimately an environment where people trust that they can speak up and they won't be punished, that they can speak up and it will be valued. And I do believe it takes time for that to happen.
Seeing people develop skills and where they become more comfortable with what they would have previously seen as conflict. And it's really not conflict, it's just putting yourself out there. This last General Circle meeting we had just this week, I was, usually I'm the only one putting forth agenda items, bringing things like that up. This last one, I only had one agenda item. I think there were 8 items on the agenda. I only contributed to 1. So the rest of the staff brought items that they wanted to discuss. And they were policy items. They weren't operational. So now they get it.
Challenges.
Sociocracy is right now, unfortunately, difficult to learn, partly because to do it you have to unlearn some things that most of us living here in the U.S. and the systems we've lived in know automatically.
Dynamic governance is certainly a new paradigm, but it's a whole different paradigm.
It's taken us a year to really understand it ourselves to a certain extent, to really understand what is each person's, each circle's mission and aim, how it fits with the mission and aim of the company overall, and what is your personal level of responsibility to that circle.
In those challenges, we can actually go to a great level of despair about how it's working or not working for us in that moment. And I believe that's an integral part of the implementation of it, at least at different phases and stages along the way.
And so we thought of kind of trying to manipulate it in some ways. But really, we found, no, it's better to really just, the way we do it in the book and the way we learned it is the way we should run a short meeting, long meeting, whatever, short form, long form. And that once you get used to it, then it can flow.
Sociocracy being a living system, it's constantly changing.
Reorganization is constantly taking place because people are thinking perhaps this is a little bit better or that's better, let's try it, and then we change. It's important that that sociocracy is not seen as a method you implement and it's ready. It's you bring in a way of development of people, of organization, and that never stops.
It will never stop. I mean, you are never finished.
Benefits and opportunities.
There's lots of really subtle things, different aspects that overall make for better leadership, more effective, more fun places to work.
The long-term care industry has very high rate of turnover. Ours is pretty much non-existent. And of course that adds to the profitability of a business when you don't have to be training new people all the time. It also adds to the continuity of the care in this case.
A more satisfied staff, including me. I like coming to work. They like coming to work. We care about we care about each other in a way and things that matter. It's not just about the bottom line. It's about human individuals. And why else are we on this earth? I'm not here to make $1 for someone. I'm here to make a contribution.
Creativity, communication, profitability, organizations that start using a circle method get much more efficient. Some of my clients get awards for excellence and survive the current recession and all that kind of thing because they're able to think effectively together to really institutionalize continuous growth and improvement.
One of the first things that come to mind when I'm asked about the benefits of dynamic governance is how much healthier the relationships are in the organization. There's very little room for toxicity, and it's not because people's voices are squashed, it's because of the exact opposite.
How was this company ever going to go on? And I was getting older, and what was going to happen? I didn't think it was going to be sustainable because I had all the rules. I had all the policies. I had everything in my head. I was just going to close the door and walk out, and it'd be closed. With that, I couldn't see any out. I was just felt trapped. So it's given me. I see now that it's going to be very sustainable.
In this school and also my former school, the people get more involved. We are more productive, the quality is better, there's less illness by the teachers, there are less problems. The atmosphere is better. It's good for the children, it's good for the parents.
Since we've adopted dynamic governance, it's much easier and more efficient for me to delegate. I'm able to receive information from all those different committees in a much more efficient fashion. I can't tell you how much more enjoyable my job is. Dynamic governance has created a fabulous model because they are watching everybody in our community now work together and everybody's empowered. We're always talking to the kids about being creative. We're always wanting them to be inspired and to use their own intuition and creativity. And now they're seeing a much better model amongst the adults in the organization because we're being more creative and we're working together in a much better fashion than we were before.
That's the way our organizations were meant to be. They're meant to serve people. They're meant to extend us and extend our humanity, not to shrink it.
One thing that was really interesting that somebody said at the very beginning of the school year, right after we adopted dynamic governance, was something like, it seems like we have so much more work to do. We've taken on so many more jobs, but my job seems easier. And I think the reason for that is because the organization was running so much better. So at first, it was taking a little bit more time, but that only lasted a couple months, and now it's actually running more efficiently. But even if that had continued and it was taking a little bit more time, I think most of us would rather go home after an 8.5-hour day that we felt empowered and we were satisfied and we were successful than going home at the end of an 8-hour day feeling belittled and inefficient and ineffective.
This is an effective way to organize and run a company. And it's one way to do it with heart. So what better way to raise your efficiency, but also raise the humanness in a company? I've been in business for 30 years, and I haven't run across a better way. If the companies in the U.S. would truly embrace DSG, we would not find ourselves in the crisis I feel that we are in today, both as a nation, but in a business sense as well. Business going hand over fist to other countries. We can't afford to make products over here anymore. Yes, we can. We can't afford doing it the way we used to do it. But I think there is a way, and that power is within the staff. Your staff are your biggest asset any company has. I don't care how much furniture you have or what fleet of planes you have or anything else. Your staff is your greatest asset. And if you're not listening to them, you're doing the business a huge disservice. So I'd say get DSG and read about Sociocracy and just think about the changes that you can make in your own organization.
Once you start to incorporate it into your company, into your organization, you will see the power that DSG can provide. I like DSG. I hope we keep it in our company.
Don't say, I'm not ready for it. Yes, try it, do it, give it a chance. Why not?
That's what you need to be successful in the market. Just try it and see what happens.
Sociocracy will never disappear at Edinburgh Electronics. Never. Because it's the best system you can have. Also my clients, they are convinced that this is the method they want because we have better motivated people. They know that we want to listen to them and that they are not a number or something.
The power of creativity is enormous. And we are ignoring creativity not in a technical way, but in a social way, always. We can bring in our creativity. There's not a problem we cannot solve.